Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Thierry Cassuto. I run a production company called Both Worlds, and I've been asked to moderate this panel of distinguished executives from the television industry. I will ask them to introduce themselves because that'll be easier, and ask each one of them to say what they do and also what keeps them up at night. Basically, what their official title is and what they're really obsessed with when it comes to African content. I produce shows in Cape Town and all over South Africa and internationally. I moved to South Africa in 1998, decided to permanently reside in South Africa because I thought it was not only a beautiful country, also because I thought this country had a lot to prove and still a lot to achieve. And from the perspective of the industry, I always believed that South Africa could become a production platform to produce film and television programming. Notice I don't call it content. I hate the word content. Content is like stuff. As long as it fits on a TV, it's called content. But I think there's a difference between feature films and TikTok. South Africa can produce amazing feature films and television shows that can be sold all over the world. Some of this potential has been reached, and we'll go through some examples, but I think we can all agree that there's still a lot more to accomplish. So let's start by just, Nicola, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what you really do beyond the title. What keeps you on your toes?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicola. I'm currently the head of premium content and co-productions at MultiChoice Group, and I'm also currently the acting executive head of content for Showmax. And what keeps me awake at night? I've been at MultiChoice now for 12 years, this October, and the leaps and bounds we've made in terms of genre and what we have on platform has grown exponentially. And I know what's coming for the next 18 months, but I'm always worried about what has to come afterwards. And I'm also quite often very worried about what's happening, the impact of the depreciations in currency and what's happening in the US markets and how that will ultimately affect us here. And there is hopefully things that we can do to buffer the impact of that economic change. Such a boring answer, I'm sorry.
No, you straight to the jugular. Harriet.
My name's Harriet Gavshon. I'm a creative director at Quizzical Pictures. We make television, mostly drama series. What keeps me up at night is absolutely bloody everything. I'm anxious. I'm driven by anxiety. That's my natural state of affairs.
Julia.
Hi, hello. Yeah, it's working. My name is Julia Fischer. I work for ZDF Studios. I am a director of sales and acquisition for Africa, Middle East, and Italy. I've been in charge of Africa, I think, for 6 or 7 years right now, coming almost every year except for Corona years for MIP Africa, and there used to be another content market called Discop before. What keeps me up at night? Probably to find a great program, a great series, and then do really good job with it. So sell it worldwide the best possible way and hopefully recoup and do a good job for everyone involved. I think that's what would keep me up at night.
That's what we all hope for from a good distributor, us producers. Laurent?
I'm Laurent Sicouri. I'm head of cinema and series production for Kana Plus African channels. I'm based in Paris. I'm half Italian, half French. My father was from Egypt and my family from Morocco. So some African blood somewhere is still there. And what keeps me up at night is to try to read all the passionate stories that I receive and to try to give feedbacks in time to make them happen on my side, which is investing on them and helping them to be on screen. Yes.
Okay, me start with Julia. Julia, you work with the commercial arm of the public broadcaster called ZDF.
Yes.
You buy and you sell shows.
Yes.
ZDF represents one of the most successful non-US TV show ever. That show is called Bron, also called The Bridge.
Yes.
We at Both Worlds know it well because we have the rights to make a South African version to it. But I'm fascinated by this show because you called it the show that keeps on giving.
Yeah, the gift that keeps on giving.
The
Yes.
gift that keeps on giving. It started the wave of Nordic noir TV series, and it put Scandinavia on the map. However, there was nothing to predict that this show would become such a global hit. It was in Swedish and Danish. It's a show that was meant to matter to the Swedes and the Danes. It is dark. The landscapes are nondescript, really not attractive. It is quite gritty. It's hard to understand. There are no stars to hang the show on. And yet ZDF bought the show to take international distribution rights, and it became a global phenomenon, and it keeps on selling and selling. I'd like you to tell us why do you think that show is such a success, and why South Africa hasn't seen a show like this yet.
So ZDF, the channel side, and us as well as the commercial arm, we've been involved in co-productions for a long period of time. So the first, I think we would even say it was The Killing, the original Danish show. Then really, really successful was The Bron, The Bridge, which came out, I think it was already 12 years ago, so 2012. It is in HD indeed, and it continued for 4 seasons. And it was such a big success that it was, I think it is always in the number 50 best shows and then 100. And that was the time when I tell everyone that it's a bingeable show before we knew what binging was. Before there was Netflix and big SVOD platform, because Apple thought they need an SVOD platform. Before everything that happened like this, we had The Bridge. So ZDF was involved in it as a channel and with a distributor. And I think what makes the show so unique, it's, I think the combination of everything. It's like an excellent writing. And everyone who was involved in the show back then, they all got successful careers. They're all working in the UK, in the US. The main characters, the main actors, they took them off to an unbelievable heights. And as you said, it's still a gift that keeps on giving. We're selling it until now. It's been 12 years around. And when you watch it, you will realize that it's still a really contemporary show in the way it was written, in the way it was directed, in the way it was played. And even it was sold to BBC, to SBS, to all of those like amazing broadcasters, to Canal Plus in France. And even though it was the beginning, because everyone knew what Netflix and Squid Game was, or before anyone knew what Casa del Papel was, it was the show that was there before all of that happened, and before Netflix came in and realized, you can have great shows that are non-English. So for us, it's an amazing show. I think it is a miracle that the show succeeded as well as it could, and I think even if you watch it right now, you will still fall in love with it. And then even now, know people in Germany, like older people who discover a ZDF online platform and will tell me, we're now watching The Bridge there. And I was like, you're late to the party, but great that you're finally there. So that was one of the best examples of a really successful drama. But I usually say it's 1 out of 100.
We'll come back to you because maybe you'll find such a show in South Africa or Africa. Harriet, as a producer, you've seen the success of a show like The Bridge, done by an independent production company in Scandinavia. You've seen the success of a show like Fauda in Israel before it got picked up by Netflix. You also saw, Casa de Papel, which was also done in Spain before it got picked up by Netflix. Squid Game, which was also a local show in Korea. And they all turned these countries around in terms of their television industries. There was a before and an after, before and after Casa de Papel, etc. Do you think South Africa has seen this moment, or is it still to be seen?
I don't think we've seen this moment. I mean, I think one of the pities is that South African international work found its stride just at the crest of the golden age of television, and we didn't have much. We had a moment there, right? And now, as we all know, the environment is difficult. It's not, it's certainly not at its height anymore. I mean, Rehima is sold to 155 countries around the world, but it's certainly not anything like the bridge. So I think we were hitting our stride, and I think hopefully there will be a turnaround and we'll get there again. But yeah, I think that it took a long time for the world to be open to South African content, but then they were, right? And so I think somebody will get there.
Nicola, do you care if an African or South African show gets sold worldwide? Because I read recently, Dorothy Gatuba from Netflix saying all they want are TV shows that work for an African audience with their subscribers, and whether they will also be attractive to global viewers is not irrelevant, but a bonus, but not something that they aim for. When you produce or co-produce a show, do you keep the international viewers in mind, or you just focus on the national viewers or domestic viewers?
It depends on which strategy we're looking at. We have a local commissioning strategy. Is that my musical number? Or
Do you have your
anyway,
tap dance
no,
shoes?
it's fine. Our local commissioned strategy focuses 100% on the local market only. We do not follow a pan-African approach. Merely using well-known South African actors and having them speak English all the time is not, according to us, a stamp of great quality at all. Then we have our co-productions where we do follow a dual strategy, where we believe that a local piece of content can speak to the local audience first and can then travel well secondly. So, for example, White Lies is currently number 3 in the UK in the charts, which, I mean, is exceptional. On Channel 4.
It's Stan
right?
in Australia.
Stan in Australia.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it's not yet on Channel 4.
Oh, it's the other way
going to
around. Yes,
Channel
it's going to
4.
Channel 4 and
Yeah.
it's number 3 in Australia.
It will be number 1 on Channel 4.
We hope so.
I hope so. I hope so.
And Laurent, what is your strategy? When you buy or commission shows for your channels, Canal Plus channels in Africa, the fact that international viewers, that it might work, that it might sell internationally, does that come into the game at all when you decide to commission or co-produce a show?
Yes, it might come. It's not the first element that we are looking for. We address ourselves. Firstly, we are thinking about our audience, the sub-Saharan French-speaking African French audience. And then if we have a show that has the ambition and the story is strong enough and international enough to appeal to an international audience, we are very happy about that. It happened. I mean, with MultiChoice, we did Spinners together, and the show was sold to Latin America and not yet in the US. But we had some proposals, and it's a question of time. And we had some other shows that were sold in UK and traveled worldwide. So it's the aim to do that. But not for all the shows, because authenticity and be close to our audience, it's an essence, and sometimes we need local strong shows for that.
Yes. So I'll follow up with you, Laurent. When you buy for the channels, because you're in charge of acquisitions, but also
This is really
production of
difficult.
cinema and scripted series and documentaries, I believe.
Shall I go into them to keep
That speaker is right in my ear.
I know, it's very hard.
We've got Steve Harvey to shut up. Anyway, so what are the qualities that you're looking for when you're buying from the African continent? What are the specific qualities that you're looking for to connect with the viewers that watch your various channels? And I believe you do both linear and non-linear, or is it only linear?
For now, it's mainly linear. We have an app that offers, of course, all the linear contents in non-linear. There are some additional contents there, but mainly is linear.
So if you were to list, three main qualities that, if you have what are the criteria you use when you watch shows at markets like these?
You're talking about acquisitions, or talking about
Acquisitions. Okay, so both acquisitions of ready-made content.
Yes.
And then when it's on paper, projects that get pitched to you.
Okay, so in acquisition, it's a different reflections. I mean, the criteria is to have something that is complementary to what we receive from the acquisitions that are done from and the productions that are done from the French team in France for France and internationally, and for contents that are very interesting in the market. So the action genre is very popular. Romantic comedies are very popular. Horror movies, but more suspense, thriller, and scaring movies than graphic ones. Western adventure, also, it's a genre that works well. This is more or less what we prefer and we look for our audience. Of course, the cast is very important. We are mainly focusing on black cast productions. Or colored, I mean, because to compensate what we have from elsewhere, but and it's more relevant for our audience, which is mainly black audience, of course.
And is language important, or because you dub everything, it doesn't matter what language it's in?
The language, of course, it's easier when there is a French dubbed version existing. Otherwise, we can dub. Our audience is not used to read subtitles, and so we try to avoid that unless for very cinematic specific movies that we want to have and we don't have the budget to dub them, but still want to keep them on the channel. Yeah. And when we have a local language production, we try to keep it, because if the community is important to keep. I know the authenticity. I was talking about the authenticity is very important for us, especially the African authenticity. Yes.
So there's some productions that were done by MultiChoice, which have aired on Canal Plus Africa. I think Blood Psalms, Shaka Ilembe, and now Spinners more recently, which has also been shown in prime time on Canal Plus, on the main premium channel. Why do you think Spinners, and I suppose it has been successful on Showmax as well, why do you think Spinners has managed to resonate in French-speaking Africa as well as other countries like Canal Plus France?
Are you asking me or Laurent?
I'm asking you as the the initiator of the project, I would say, even though I believe it's a co-production between your two entities.
I believe the strength of the story is key. Very strong characters, universal themes, with a very local authenticity. Our CEO spoke this morning about, remember that entire move we had when Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, and you were just blown away by the freshness of the story and how beautiful it was told. And I believe that something like Spinners and Shaka Lembe did that. outward facing, where it just blows you away by, it's a certain, I don't want to say X factor, but I suppose it is an X factor, and really high production quality. And that's, I believe, what crossed over into the other markets so well.
So, and I think this is the first time that an Afrikaans series has shown on primetime TV in France. Do you think language, therefore, is not an obstacle? And if we were to do shows like Shaka Ilembe in Zulu or in Afrikaans or any other African language, that could also travel, just like the bridge was done in both Danish and Swedish. We've been obsessed with doing shows in English because we were told that opens the rest of the world. And we're seeing that non-English shows are actually traveling even better than English shows. Even though Reka has done 155 countries, I mean, Spinners was against everything we had been told before. What's your opinion, Harriet, on that?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's you've got to tell the story in the right language for the story, right? And it can sometimes it's English and sometimes it's not English. I think there's nothing worse than forcing a story into English when actually that is not the right language for it. There's nothing worse than people not being able to talk their mother tongue when there's no, just because the market requires it. But I think but the issue with co-production is that it's a really difficult balancing act to make sure that all the parties get what they want and you hold on to the authenticity of the work, of the creative. And that, as a producer of a co-production, that is what you have to balance. Yeah.
So, Julia, you said what keeps you up at night is that you'd like to find a TV series, maybe from Africa, that you could take as part of your catalog and sell it well around the world. What we just discussed, the fact that something in Afrikaans has just traveled internationally, doesn't have lead stars. They're most of them new actors, fresh talent, and is not based on IP. There's no novel, it's not a remake. When you look at something like that, a distributor, and you are asked to put a minimum guarantee, what will be your first reaction to it, if it's on paper?
Well, it's always different. So we have a team of people responsible each for a different territory. And we usually look and do estimates for each territory differently. So things that might work in one territory might not work in another territory. So we always look, you see, what kind of type of content works in which territory, and if the revenues from that territory will be enough to cover from DMG. So sometimes we will take something that can work, we know, in 2 territories, but sometimes it's enough to recoup, and then we say, okay, that's worth to try. If we see something, I always say it should be, if it's something on paper, on its early stages, and there is no package, it should be really well written. I think that's the starting point. It should be so well written that you kind of enjoy reading, enjoy the story, and that's the very beginning.
So you need to read a pilot script, at least.
So we come on board on different stages as a distributor because it became so difficult to get great content later on. So we're sometimes also there to fund the developments where sometimes if we see we have a show that we said we helped develop the pilot script after reading half a page. So it's not necessarily, but if you want to go out and to find financing partners or pre-sales, that's the minimum that you have to have. It's like a pilot and a pitch deck. But I mean, even if I read the pitch deck, there is a difference between a good pitch deck and not so good pitch deck. And if the pitch deck is not perfect, then you kind of hesitate. Because if no one has put his energy to writing a great pitch deck, then what else can they do? You don't know, you just don't know it, but already upsetting, not really great pitch deck can set me off, for example.
So getting a package with a lead actor from South Africa or outside of South Africa is not crucial to you. The writing is, first of all, what needs to sell you to the idea.
So the thing is like the thing is like to find a story that's, you know, it's a group effort. So every show is a group effort. So if we kind of come on board, like it happens with another show, there was no lead international actor that was involved, and we liked the story, we liked the script, and we wanted to be part of it. And it happens that we were not able to make the right amount of projections to be involved later on when a great actor came on board. That also happens. So a package helps, but it never guarantees anything. It never guarantees if you would have a Hollywood director, if you would have a great star, it can turn out to be not the greatest series, because everyone from the beginning, from the person who writes the pitch deck until the person who does the credits at the end of the movie, everyone is important. That's why like our business is so unpredictable, and like something that I might like at the beginning, it might turn out to be something that no one is watching. And we had those stories, and everyone had those stories. So like there's impossible to predict or guarantee that the series will be, like in our case, a successful sales story, because it's just our like essence of the business.
Nicola, how important are co-productions for MultiChoice versus how many hours does your group produce? Something like 70,000 hours?
Yeah, 6,500 hours a year.
How many?
6,500 a year.
6,500.
Across Africa, yeah.
Across Africa. How many of those hours are premium, because that's part of your title, the premium content, and how many are those co-productions, and how do they matter in the greater scheme of things to the group?
In terms of premium hours, but that means English and Afrikaans, that would be around 900 of the 6,500. But then in terms of co-productions, we will do around 5 series a year. And it's not so much that they're important, it's so much as but they become crown jewels. And they only get done if they are done right in the end. It's not like we have to have a certain amount of output per year. We would rather find the right projects. We have currently seriously increased the slate of co-production documentary. The financing on documentaries come together much quicker and much easier than the dramas do. You know how complicated that gets. So it's more about doing the right ones than how many we do.
And why are they important as crown jewels to MultiChoice?
Because ultimately, I mean, I think, I went to Content London last year and I was one of the speakers and I said, MultiChoice has 21 million subscribers, and everybody was like, who? What? Who are they? And that's quite alarming in terms of sort of the global view. It's alarming that they don't know who we are and how much work gets done in Africa and how good the work is. So for me, it's the fact that we are now building relationships with some of the premium and best international distributors and broadcasters, and also it means that our content and our stories travel better, and it's more about expanding our footprint worldwide.
And from a financial point of view, now that Mnet has been in the game for several years of co-productions, what have you learned so far of what travels well and when you recoup your investment, and what doesn't travel so well?
I think Julia alluded to it earlier. I think many producers are like, this is going to be amazing. You get more money and you have back end. Like, around 1 out of 10 co-productions are going to recoup. Your recoupment will probably come 3 to 5 years after you've made the piece of content. That's after you've worked on it for 12 years. This is by no means a get-rich-quick scheme for anybody in your value chain. So it's a difficult, but it's an amazing business plan if you can get it right, but it is a risk.
Laurent, are you involved in international co-productions as well, or do you only produce local or hyper-local shows? Could you tell us about your slate and between hyper-local, regional, and I would say international shows you do? Because I remember conversations where you were saying that what really works well is when people in Cameroon or Ivory Coast or Senegal see themselves on the screen. And something that is in Senegal might not travel so well to Gabon or the Ivory Coast. And when we take a view which talks about Africa, we tend to think, well, it's French-speaking, it's Western African, they should be able to share. And actually, it doesn't work. Hyper-local is the name of the game in most of these countries for you. But are you finding shows that can travel across borders in Africa? And which ones would they be?
Yeah. Yes, of course. So we have to. We try to do our best to do that. In terms of production, we aim to produce 8 shows per year of premium shows, 1 hour or six times. 10 or 6 times 1 hour. Sometimes even longer shows. What the recipe to make them, let's say, Pan-African, at least appealing Pan-African in our audience, for our audience. I think the strong story, emotions, authenticity of the characters when they play, and we come back to the language. Sometimes it's important to. We prefer to have local language spoken for some kind of scenes to keep them real and authentic, and that the emotion is there instead of having something forced that takes you away from what is the essence. We have a recent example with Shaka Ilembe, so a South African show. It worked very well for us. So everybody could identify, in this story, it's an epic story. Everybody knows Shaka. It's very upscaling for everybody. But Spinners did work pretty well for us, not as well as it did here. And we hope with the next shows that we will get something produced in Africa that is very, very popular too in all our countries. Yes.
That's interesting to hear, and it's wonderful that Shaka Ilembe did really well on the Kana Plus channels, on your Kana Plus channels. I heard somebody say that the only thing that travels well all across Africa is Black Panther. So American-made, Wakanda Forever type of show. It's great that Shaka Ilembe proves that that can be authentic, locally made, and telling a true story, and does travel well.
But if we go to another scale, some long-running, sorry to take the term, soapy series like the Mazanzi Magic series, like The Queen, Gomorrah, The Wife, all those shows are very popular in our countries.
Okay, that's interesting.
We dub them, and it's enough to make them very popular, and people identify themselves very easily. So,
Julia, you mentioned this. Yeah, you want to find that show. If you had $1 million to put as a Menji on a show that could be made in Africa, whether it's Eastern, Western, Southern Africa, what would be your dream show? And you've been to Africa a few times, so you can talk about location, but also story.
I have two preferences. I like it's either Cape Town or any other nice ocean town, cop procedural. Would love that. Easy, not too dark, interesting, with great angles, great cases. That would be one. And the other one, because like everyone is looking for like younger skewing to attract that younger skewing audience, and the shows that performed well recently in that genre were, some people know it, it's Emily in Paris, so Emily in Cape Town, or in another sexy city in Africa, or you can do, there was recently a German show on Prime Video. I don't know if it's here on the Prime Video or not. It was Maxton Hall. It was basically a high school romantic drama. It performed really well. It's easy concept, good-looking young people falling in love. Like that always travels and that works. So that would be my first choices.
Okay.
At
So-
the moment,
At the
people.
moment. So
Yes.
if, yeah, would this type of show resonate with a South African audience or an audience that's part of the MultiChoice footprint, rather, or with the Canal Plus footprint? Or is that's what the international representative here is saying, that's what we expect to see that will sell well across the world? Would it work with local audiences?
It's interesting that you asked that, Thierry, because when I went to Content London last year, we had true crime on the slate because that's where everybody was going. And when we got to London, they were like, oh no, it's cozy crime. So we were like, okay, pivot the other way. So I can only answer that question for you in about the next 6 months when we start testing the teenage shows that they asked for last year. Okay, but we also do listen to what the international parties want.
And you, Laurent?
I mean, the best producers for international contents, we know who they are, the Americans, and the American networks are. NCIS is the most popular show on earth, and it works very well in Africa too. So sometimes single story, yeah, procedural crime, but not too graphic. It's compelling and it works, but it's the story behind it. We have to find the good balance for something that is African with some ingredients from international shows.
I want to close with one question, then we'll go to the floor for questions. And that's a question both for you, Laurent, and Nicola. We all have been following the marriage between Canal Plus and MultiChoice, or the acquisition of MultiChoice by Canal Plus, rather. That's been gradual. Now it's been public. It's been made public. It has to go through the legal and competition authorities first before it is approved. But are we going to see more of Laurent in Randburg and more of Nicola in Paris? That's what I want to know.
Emily in Paris, Nicola in Paris. I feel I can live it. You want to make a show?
And how do you feel about Randburg?
I feel very well everywhere. I think it's a brilliant idea, and it makes sense for not only for us, for everybody. Yeah.
Next year, can we expect more output from both entities? More projects? Or, everybody's saying that around the world production is actually shrinking. There's less money. There are less projects being greenlit. We thought that, in Africa we would be spared that, but we've seen that there's a reality, there's a crunch hitting also Africa, our broadcasters. What is your forecast? Are we going to see the same level of output from MultiChoice and Canal Plus? Less? Equal? How is the merger going to affect it?
I respond. We're trying to do as much as we can together. If we find that that makes sense, and what you're saying, the economy, the financial aspect is very important. So if we can join forces and make something happen and produce it in a way that it can travel better because there is more, the production value is there, everybody's happy about it. So we will try to do as much as possible. And to finish, I think my forecast is the African production will grow, is improving, and always improving. There are plenty of incredible stories and talents, and in the next years we will have some shows that will make the difference and will make it spread everywhere. And it will be much easier to produce big shows here in Africa.
Mm-hmm. You want to add anything, Nicola?
No, I think you answered it perfectly.
There's a mic there if you want to, show of hands. I think you were first, the lady in orange here.
Hello. My name is Nana Pula. I'm a screenwriter, actress, director and producer. I'm currently finishing my master's in film. I wanted to ask a question to 1 and 2. I wanted to ask, sometimes you're right, Thierry, that we have been taught for us to be palatable, we have to kind of use English and we have to kind of go the Western way or, try and keep that in mind when we're writing stories if we wanted to travel, right? Do you guys think that African narratives have safe platforms in which they're able to be their true selves? For example, when asked the question, you mentioned a lot of times that if they have strong stories. And what's strong in other countries might be different for us as what is strong. I know for local content, what is strong to us is like totally different. But then it marks the question that, do we have to wait for the world for us to be palatable for them? Or can we show up globally as authentically as ourselves with our narratives and our stories, and then work in a way in which we can introduce the world to us? Is it safe for us? Do you think that there's a space for Africa to show up authentically with what we deem as our strong stories, and stop trying to fit into the box of the global world and what is there, and just show up as us and what we think is great and what we think is strong, and then maybe work together, with Kana Plus, to add ways in which we can make it involve you guys?
I think your question is aimed at Canal Plus, straight at Laurent. Will you take maybe an answer?
The answer is yes, yes, yes. Of course there is, and it will be a pleasure and an honor to do it, always.
Another question. Let's try to keep it quick because we only have 4 minutes left. So keep it short.
Okay, cool.
Thank
Hi.
you.
So my question is, it's very similar, I guess, to what she asked it in a very nice way. But are there any rooms for any kind of more indie films, not so much on a very full commercial platform? I mean, there's a lot of stories. I don't know how to say it, but exactly, it seems like that it needs to fit into a box. All these stories need to fit into all your boxes. Is there any scope for any kind of like a nouveau, like more art style films or content, not content?
Are you talking about feature films or TV series?
A series, feature films, any content.
So, are you open to art films and art house independent content for TV or film?
Yes, we are. It's more complicated for series, for feature-length movies and documentaries. We have two genres: the more mainstream genre and the one that are more for festivals. And many were awarded in Class A festival like Cannes, Berlin, Locarno, these festivals. So, and sometimes our first debut movies. So we do that too.
Any other questions? Lady.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello. My question is, I think, for everyone on the panel, because I believe context and perspective may differ. I've heard you say you're looking for series that will succeed over a number of years, potentially. But to what extent would you prefer to see perhaps a movie that you then convert to a series? Is that your preferred route, or you're thinking you'd be happy to do a series if it's well done? What is your preference? And like I said, I would like each person's perspective.
Is this towards Laurent at Canal Plus or anyone else?
It's for everyone that purchases or is interested in successful content.
Do you want to take a shot?
Sorry, there's no one single route or a preferred route. Sorry, I know that's a non-answer, but it's amazing if a movie can become, with existing IP and an existing franchise, can grow into a series, but that seldomly happens. But I mean, it would be amazing. But there's not only one preferred route, honestly.
Someone at the back there, yes?
Good day. Thank you so much for the panel discussion. My name is Chi Malachi. I'm a programmer and film exhibitor. In this afternoon's discussion, most of the examples you brought up were series or TV shows. I want to understand more about the fiction and narrative film slate. Which films have succeeded? What needs to happen with the African fiction film market? Just some examples maybe so that we can get good guidance in that direction. Probably directed at Canal Plus or MultiChoice, yes.
So we did talk about both feature films and TV series. I think you by African fiction, you refer to feature-length films, rather.
Yeah.
So
I can quickly answer. The feature-length film, African movies that work better are the most popular one. So comedies that have been theatrically released and they made a great success in the theaters in sub-Saharan Africa.
one last question.
Here's one.
We have, okay, keep it short and we might squeeze two. The lady in the second row there.
Hi, quick question. Are any of you open to international co-production partnerships?
Yes, I think all of us are.
Currently?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, okay. And there's a gentleman at the back there.
So this is for Laurent. So to this lady's question, you said yes, yes, yes. At the same time, authenticity speaks to various different experiences, including especially, I would say, one of the key issues being LGBTQ. Where is Canal Plus sitting in all that, especially with this pending acquisition? In terms of
we have produced many independent feature-length movies, and the most not here in South Africa because we are talking mainly on the French, on the French countries, but some are not in French. They are in local languages like Polar, like the Senegal language. We had Atlantic that was in Cannes, best film. We had Félicité that was in Berlin, Silver Bear. We had The Night of the Kings that was in Toronto, won a prize, and now the director made it a movie for Amazon, and we're doing a series with him. So it's different, you know. And as I was saying, two examples. Those movies are more independent, more edgy. They don't work. They are not popular in the theaters and in our channels, but they are prestigious, and the countries are proud to have them, and they are important for everybody else.
Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of our time. Thank you very much, Laurent, Julia, Harriet, and Nicola, and thank you all.
Thank you.